Hello everyone, welcome once again to the vast and ominous comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
Dan, today we're going to be talking about Action Comics. We're going to be talking about the first 8 issues of Action Comics.
Awesome.
So when this book started, and Grant Morrison was on this, was announced that he was going to be on this book, how excited were you for this?
I was pretty excited, and I absolutely loved the first issue. I thought it was one of the better number ones of the 52 that I read.
I thought so too. And I honestly, in some ways, kind of felt like he put more energy into the first issue than he did in the rest of it combined.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I think that problem becomes really apparent in the artwork as well. I think that interlude they did in the middle of this story was because of the artist, and he didn't have enough time to do the issues. So I think as you look through the book, like it becomes really apparent when somebody finished pencils for him and stuff, because he has a very unique style, and some of the faces look weird sometimes, and the action isn't as good, which in Action Comics the action should be good.
Kind of like in Detective Comics, it should be a detective story.
Yeah.
But that's a really interesting point that I hadn't thought of, that the book is called Action Comics, so there actually should be somewhat of an emphasis on the action. And that, a lot of people when this first came out were talking about how this was going back to the original Superman so much. And that's absolutely true. We've got a Superman here who is smiling a lot while he's fighting things, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how this was written as a whole, really, because Morrison I felt like his mission statement with this was to put the reader sort of in the shoes of a citizen of Metropolis and kind of witness the birth of Superman and Clark Kent as personas, and see that when he first starts out, he's not good at making this sort of symbol that's going to fix everybody's problems and be an inspirational symbol, Like the symbol that he creates for Superman and Clark Kent here, like, they're not well liked by anyone.
No, it's like he does it wrong to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the end of the book, we see sort of Clark. I think the scene at the end of issue 8 is when we sort of see him sort of figure it out, like Clark is sort of being himself in the cemetery. That's where we get a glimpse, I think, of who Clark and Kal-El, or whatever you want to call him, really is. I don't think he's really the going against the establishment crusading reporter Clark Kent. Like, he cares about that stuff. I don't think he's as over the top with it as he is in the scene where he's being confronted by the police.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a really good point. Almost as if he's trying to create that persona, but that's not really him.
Right.
Because clearly he wasn't brought up that way.
Right.
And we have a Clark Kent here who still was brought up the same way that the Clark that we always, knew was, and I think he has the exact same values. But I think that that the big theme of this, well, besides the Brainiac stuff, which is even a different theme, but I think that the theme of the beginning of this is Clark is a man from a different time because he was brought up by the parents he was brought up with. That kind of a man at a time is being confronted with a world that he can't control, and he doesn't know what to do about it. And what I mean by at a time, I feel like there's some kinship between a character like Clark Kent and Steve Rogers, because Steve Rogers has this upbringing and this kind of ethical system from days gone by, and so does Superman, even though he's not that old and he wasn't trapped in ice for 40 years, right?
Right.
And so what we have with him here is he's trying to uphold those values in a world where nobody he comes up against understands that, even kind of. And so it's almost like you have something very similar to the character from the late 30s in today's world, and he doesn't know what to do with it, so he does it wrong when he starts.
Right. And I think you brought up a good point when you were talking about how he was sort of a man out of time thing. Maybe this is sort of Morrison doing some sort of meta commentary on how relevant Superman is as an idea.
Oh, clearly that's what he's doing here.
Because when you think about it, like, this Superman is more of what I feel like a lot of people in comic bookdom, like people that are fans of comic book characters that don't really understand the character would like him to be, and it's not effective at all. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you mean. You mean what he tries to do at the beginning.
Yeah, I feel like that Superman is what a lot of people, they're like, oh, Superman's such a Boy Scout. Why doesn't he, torture people with his powers, to solve, and get down on the streets and solve crime and stuff like that.
And he tries it, and guess what? It doesn't work.
Right.
People don't respond to it the way that he would like them to. He starts off with kind of just, hey, if you don't do things my way, you're going to see me and bad things are going to happen to you. And then he realizes that he has to be later on. He realizes that he has to be a symbol as opposed to a bully.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's really cool that Morrison's doing a commentary on that, where he's trying to actually make a case for the traditional Superman 70 or 80 years after the fact.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. Another thing that I was going to bring up when I was talking about the perspective of how this was written, I think, and how the Metropolis, like, you're supposed to be a Metropolis citizen thing. I don't know if I really touched on this before, but I thought it was really interesting that we never, ever get into the head of Clark Kent or Superman in this.
You don't think?
We never get any narration of their thoughts.
Oh, no, we certainly don't get narration. No, we don't. We do see him in his private life, though.
We do, but there's very little of it. Most of the scenes of his private life, he's with other people in places where a citizen of Metropolis could see him, besides maybe his apartment. Those are probably the only scenes I can think of.
That's what I was thinking of, too.
But I just thought that was a really interesting, and I thought it was effective in at least the early issues. Kind of seeing him as this symbol that he's trying to create that's not effective. I thought that was really cool. I want to move on for a minute to, because you'll probably have more of an opinion on this than I do. What did you think about the whole reinvention of, like, Jimmy Olsen as a character in here?
Well, we didn't get a whole lot of them, so I don't have a giant opinion. One thing I'm really wondering just with New 52 on the whole is how certain characters with their ages being changed, how that exactly works compared to other people. Because Jimmy and Clark seem to be the same age in this.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell. And it seems like they've just completely reinvented that character. Like for most of everybody else, they just made everybody younger. But with Jimmy Olsen, it's like, no, in this, he's not going to be like Superman's sidekick. He's going to be Clark Kent's best friend. And I'm like, okay, I guess if you think Clark Kent needs a best friend. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a strange change, and I don't think much has been done with it yet, really.
Yeah, I hope they do something with it, because I think as a concept it's kind of interesting. It's made me a little bit more interested in the character than I've been before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like...
You said you thought I'd have an opinion on that. I really don't, actually. I thought that it was kind of throwaway. Like, it seemed like it was just an arbitrary change.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Morrison does anything without an intent a lot. I don't know. Like,
Usually he doesn't, but at the same time, so far, this is not All-Star.
Oh, definitely not.
I have always thought that from the little Morrison I've read, that Morrison is really better on a small scale than he is on a big scale. What I mean by that is, as far as just the medium of comics, I think that when he's given a limited series to write, he's really good at making a really cohesive story. But I feel like if you make his sandbox too big, he jumps all over the place. So if you say, Grant Morrison, you're going to get an open-ended series that has no discernible ending, it's gonna unravel and get crazy and crazy. And I feel like we're kind of already seeing that with this series.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest to that, because I was thinking of dropping the book after the whole interlude thing.
Which didn't work for me at all. First of all, I always just kind of glaze over as soon as Legion shows up on anything.
Yeah, the Legion just make any story that I'm reading infinitely more confusing, so... I just don't really care about those characters too much, and it's way too, like, meta time travel stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like, I don't mind time travel, but just for some reason, the concepts that they use with those characters just make everything confusing to me.
Yeah, well, and it was stranger here for me than it has been in other places, because I think that using those characters in this book is, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't seem to mesh with the rest of what he's doing. Because it's kind of a character-driven book. I mean, kind of like you said, we're kind of outside of Clark Kent's head, but still, like, I feel like there is a lot of dimension to the character.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
I mean, it definitely has a whole bunch of giant sci-fi ideas and stuff. But there's a lot of social commentary, things like that. It's at least a socially driven book, if not a character-driven book. And then all of a sudden we have the like Golden or Silver Age kind of DC stuff intruding upon it, where it's just about the wiggy out there stuff that Grant Morrison really, really loves. But what's great about the best of Morrison stuff is when he can bring that into something and still keep it character driven. And I don't know if he succeeded so much at that with 6 and 7.
Yeah, I mean, like, it seemed to me like the only...
Seemed counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, I feel like the only reason that the Legion were in this at all was, well, there's two reasons. One, because I think Rags Morales didn't have enough time to draw 7 and 8 as issues 5 and 6. Mm-hmm. Because, obviously, those are direct continuations of those issues. They should have been those. And the other reason being, Superman was... they had the whole Superboy, him being in the Legion of Superheroes thing in the Silver Age, and Morrison sort of going back to the old Superman ideas and showing him as what he was back in the day and sort of reevaluating that. So I feel like that was the only reason they were there, but I don't think he succeeded in sort of reevaluating Superboy as a valid or invalid idea for Superman as a character like he did in the first couple issues of Action with the 40 Superman thing.
Yeah, and and when he was doing that, we were seeing all these callbacks to things from the 40 Superman, from the late 30s, early 40s Superman, and we were seeing like things being turned on their head. That first issue, the coolest thing in that whole thing for me is Superman stops the bullet train, but he gets smashed up against a wall.
Yeah, I thought.
I mean,
that
is
cool.
fantastic. That is the last thing you ever expected to see when you turn that page.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just love that. And the Superman that jumps instead of flies. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in I think it was still that first issue, I had kind of a weird moment with that panel where you see blood coming out of Superman's ear while he's stopping that train.
Oh, I didn't.
Because I've never seen that before, and we've got a Superman here that's not entirely invulnerable, and that's so counter to what you expect to see that I actually kind of reeled when I saw that. I was like, wow. I mean, like I liked it, but I kind of reeled. I was like, wow, it's like Superman is barely managing to stop this train.
Right. I mean, that was the cool thing for me too, is just seeing something so contrary to what I had been accustomed to before. And I had been
and let me reiterate that it's not cool just because it's different.
Right,
I think it's very important to say that. There's still a lot of an argument here for this Superman works in modern day, and all these things that we're seeing are different because that's more like what we would expect to see now. Yeah. As opposed to back then, but the idea of Superman still permeates and still is it still can work.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's the biggest thing for this for me, and the biggest thing I like about it. And I'm just worried that as the series progresses, we're gonna get further and further away from that.
Yeah.
Because now it's just becoming about doing really odd things and all the strange cosmic stuff that's just not really about any big ideas.
I feel like he's gonna go really Kryptonian on us too, which I
think so too.
I don't really have any interest in that really, because like for me the coolest parts of the book were Superman on the ground in the jeans and the t-shirt, like fighting stuff, and Clark being a crusading reporter. I thought that was really engaging stuff, but like there was an entire issue dedicated pretty much to Well, like, the first part of it was, like, Kandor getting bottled by Brainiac.
Right.
And I was just like, what is this? Like, at first, like, I had no idea what was happening, because it was like, we got, like, a cliffhanger at the end of issue 3, and then all of a sudden we're on Krypton, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then Clark wakes up, and, you know, like, the whole non-linear storytelling thing that Morrison does works in a lot of places, but I don't think the transitions that he has from issue to issue here work as well. Like, there were even points...
I don't think there are any transitions. That's the a lot of the time. That's the problem with it, is that he keeps interrupting the flow of the narrative with other things, and yeah, we probably need those eventually, but I feel like he could have come up with a way for those to be more natural.
It's just strange. Like, you'll finish an issue and the characters will be left in one place. And then you pick up the next issue, and they're somewhere else. Like, and there's no explanation as to how they got to that place. Not from a plot standpoint, not necessarily like the characters went through in an arc while the issue ended, but...
Right, but you have to keep in mind how comic books work and how we gotta wait a month before we read the next one.
Right.
And so, you know, it's hard enough just to remember what happened issue to issue when you're reading like that, and then all of a sudden you open up the issue and you go, okay, we're not where we were before, so like I gotta work harder. And even reading it all together, remember when we reviewed Ninja Turtles, I said that book read a lot better together than it did separately. Mm-hmm. I don't think this does. I think that this works about as well or not well either direction, because I had the same problems with it reading it all together as I did before. It kept interrupting itself.
Yeah, I mean, like, the perfect example of that is the whole thing where Steel jumps in, and it's like, go to the end of the issue to figure out what happened in this scene. We're going to continue on.
I have never, in my entire history of reading comics, seen anything like that.
Yeah, it was so weird.
And then it's just like, Grant Morrison's like, I'm just going to let somebody else write that part. I was like, what?
Yeah.
All right. And the backup features in this were really weird too, which I don't think we need to talk about a whole lot, but I felt like, why couldn't they have all just been Steel?
I didn't read any of them, to be honest, so...
Oh, all right.
I was just going to ask you, like, if they were any good or not.
Some of them were better than others. I kind of liked the one about Jonathan and Martha Kent and how hard they had been trying to conceive. And one thing they did with that was, I don't remember which issue that was in. I think it's like 4, 5, or 6. But I think it's like, yeah, it's 5 or 6.
Yeah, that was definitely during the Legion thing, because I didn't read the first Steel backup because I have no interest with that character at all. And,
oh, really? See, I like Steel quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't read a lot of 90s Superman, so that's probably why.
Oh, okay.
But
right.
I remember reading.
That's what I've read.
Yeah, I remember reading the that issue with the Legion and seeing something that wasn't like miniature people on top of Superman's brain with kryptonite, and I was like, oh, maybe this will interest me, and I remember that being good, so.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you did read that part.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked, I wanted to throw this out there real quick, I really liked the idea that it was both Jonathan and Martha Kent that couldn't conceive.
Right, I really liked that too.
That was a really cool idea. That was actually kind of a moving little story. But yeah, so I don't know, the whole thing about all the kryptonite and the miniature people in his brain and stuff did nothing for me. I just didn't like that story. And that's the biggest complaint I have about this, is that I could have done without all that, and I wanted to jump to the Bottle City stuff, because guess what? Once we got there, it was pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And I have to mention something.
Superman being really big, and everybody else being in the tiny city and all that, and him towering over them, and like they look out and they just see his S outside. I mean, there was some really cool stuff done with the art in that book. I mean, in that issue, and I really liked that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I have to mention something to you that's kind of small, but you're more of a Superman guy than me, and
Sure.
I was meaning to ask you this. You know the small dude that's throughout the issues here? Is he supposed to be Mxyzptlk or something?
The small dude.
At the beginning of the issue, he's in the room with I forget his name, but the guy that Superman's trying to stop throughout the entire arc, the guy who's like owns the Daily Planet. And there's this like little guy that's like in the room with him when Superman comes in, and like he goes in the elevator and he's like, "Someone help him!" and he's like all sarcastic about it and smiles, and then he shows up later.
Yeah, my guess was that maybe that was Mxyzptlk, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that was my kind of reaction to it, because I didn't know if they were trying to set him up as a villain or what. But
I don't know. That was maybe so. And of course, Morrison always does this, where he'll plant something 40 issues before he does anything with it, you know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and that's not a problem. Once again, let me reiterate that I don't have a problem with Morrison getting a whole bunch of issues on this book. What I don't like is that we've just got these parts where I don't know how they mix in with the rest of the narrative, and they make me want to stop reading. That's my whole thing. We're not going to review 9, but 9 just came out, and I didn't like it at all. And I'm just like, why can't we have at least just one thing that ties it into the rest of this, so that we at least can be positively sure that when he's finished with this, he's going to come back to the rest of it. Okay, DC pushed this book at the beginning really hard as this is going to be a Superman like you've never seen before. It's young Superman. He's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And then the very next issue after 3, that's not what we're reading anymore. And that kind of turned me off a little bit, because those were the things that they were getting me excited about. And then they kept doing these issues where that's not what we had. It was just clunky. I mean, that's probably the best word I can come up with. It was just kind of clunky. I want to talk about 8 for a minute.
Okay.
And we're running out of time, but and this is going to be a longer review than we've been doing lately. But we're doing 8 issues, and it's Morrison, so there's a lot to say. Issue 8, I loved. First of all, I love Lex in this. I love everything about Lex.
Lex is awesome.
I love that we have a Dr. Lex. We have a Dr. Luthor, and that's so cool that we're back to Mad Scientist Lex, but he's still very much the manipulative corporate kind of Lex also. I've never seen this kind of a mix between Mad Scientist and corporate Lex. And I love that, like he actually planned that bullet train to hit Superman in that first issue. That's such cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so I love how he fits into all this, where he's actually talking to Brainiac on the phone.
And that was hilarious.
And stuff like that. And then Lois just kind of standing around going, "What's Brainiac saying? What's Brainiac saying?" And the problem I have with issue 8 is just that the artwork keeps changing.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
all the way through it.
That page where Superman's smiling is creepy.
It is super creepy. Thank you. You know, you turn the page to the scene just before that, where he is standing at the podium. And by the way, I really like that scene. I don't care for the art here, but I like this scene because that seems to be the point where he's coming into his own as the symbol Superman, who is okay being in front of cameras and doing public appearances and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like, you have the Morales looking artwork the page before, and then you turn the page and you got this creepy mayor guy with this big giant face.
Yeah.
And it's really creepy. And then, right after that, you get the big, huge face perspective Superman. Like, I hope they never make a poster of that. But I don't know, it was, again, it's clunky. You turn the page and it's like you're reading a different book.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks the artwork in this book especially, I think, speaks volumes about how quickly thrown together this whole New 52 thing was.
Yeah,
Because if you're going to launch a book with someone like Grant Morrison and Rags Morales as the creative team, you should at least have a few issues in the can before you get going. You know, I mean, we were critical of Incredible Hulk about this. You know,
I was going to mention Incredible Hulk, and I feel like it's twice as bad here.
I don't know if it's I don't know.
Well, I got to be honest with you. With Incredible Hulk, I didn't notice it as hard as you did.
Oh, okay. Fair
here, that was not even a point I was going to bring up in that review.
Oh,
and you mentioned it. Here, it was the first thing I thought of to mention. Twice as bad for me, personally.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I do agree with you, because the artwork was one of the first things I brought up in this review, too, so maybe you're right.
Well, I mean, you don't have to agree with me, but that's what I think. I think it's a huge problem. And
it's
annoying
a huge problem.
I think Morales is a great, great artist.
Oh, he is, when he has enough time, I think, to finish.
And that's the difference for me, and maybe part of why I had such a problem with it was that I didn't really care for the art that much in Incredible Hulk to begin with. So when it kept changing, it wasn't as big of a deal to me because I just didn't even like it all that much.
Yeah.
But with this, I notice it when it's something I really love and it turns into something that I don't like as much.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, especially the first issue, which is all Morales, like, he doesn't have anyone doing finishes for him. I mean, like, the artwork is breathtaking in that. The action scenes are just fantastic.
It's some of the most kinetic action I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, and that's what excited me about this is, like, this is very appropriate of the title, like we were talking about before, the first issue at least. And then it kind of devolves. I don't know, like, there were points where, like, there was cross-eyed people and, like, not looking at the people they were talking to.
Yeah.
It was just like, what? I don't know. But I just realized that we haven't talked about Brainiac at all.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about that. I thought that it was a stroke of genius to make Metallo and Brainiac the same character.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I thought it was a really interesting idea as well to make Brainiac the internet.
Yes! What a cool idea!
That was awesome.
That was actually my jaw drop moment when he says all the different names that other worlds had for him, and then he says, and on this planet, internet. And I went, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? They are not dissimilar.
They aren't.
the idea of what Brainiac was on Krypton and what we have with the internet, not dissimilar. I mean, as time goes on, the internet is doing more and more things for us automatically.
Yeah. I mean,
and I just love, not that it has a mind of its own yet or anything, but I love that idea. And I really think that I really think that Morrison is making a statement by saying that, because it's not like this is a futuristic book or anything, that
right.
Like in this, the internet was already Brainiac.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a really interesting juxtaposition to have him as the villain in this, because you have sort of like the guy that's supposed to represent the best in humanity, mm-hmm. and their potential as, just men, period. And then you have something that was created by man to solve other problems for them, where Superman is supposed to be the thing that people have in it as an example, and Superman tries to do the same thing that Brainiac's sort of doing by, just solving people's problems for them and not showing them how to solve them themselves.
Yeah, great character art.
And
I was really excited that by the end of this we have a Superman who actually solves a problem by doing something interesting, or not just by doing something interesting, but by using his head and not just using his fists. And he actually solves a problem with ingenuity. That's a problem that a lot of Superman writers have, is that he's got so many superpowers. And I think that's also why a lot of readers don't like him, because they misunderstand him because people don't know how to write him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Where what happens is people just go, okay, he's Superman, so he can do anything with his fists or his heat vision or what have you. So of course Grant Morrison says, well, what I'm going to have Superman do is like think about everything that's gone on so far, put two and two together, and go, okay, I can actually use my spaceship to stop Brainiac. And I think that that moment encapsulates everything you're saying when he says, and the irony of it all is that you brought it aboard because you have to collect everything.
Yeah.
That was such a cool idea. The idea being that Brainiac can't get around his own programming, and his. Remember, he keeps talking about nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
And he can't get over his own nature, and so Superman proves nurture over nature.
Yeah, and
by doing that, and then he changes his mind about how he's operating, because it doesn't have to be nature. Because his nature is, I have superpowers and I can do anything with my fists. And his nurture is, you let people, you lead by example, and you let people do what they're going to do.
Right. And then I think the scene that sort of finalizes the whole character arc and wraps it up is the scene where he's in the graveyard with the Kents.
Yes.
Where he's talking to his mom and dad and stuff, and just proving that, like we said, he's gonna be a Superman that's more in line with the values that he was raised with, rather than the ones that he thought he was expected to have as this sort of Kryptonian hero. And I'm gonna be really interested to see what kind of role Jor-El plays in this, if he's gonna be sort of the foil for the way the Kents raise Superman. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Good point. I mean, like, is there a Jor-El consciousness in this that I missed, or?
I didn't see anything. I'm just.
Okay.
I just figured that they would introduce him in some capacity as sort of, because
Oh, really? Okay. I'm not really expecting that, but maybe so. I mean, he has been talking to the ship, so.
Right. I mean, I'm wondering if, that voice that speaking in Kryptonian, when he's in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what was going on with that, so I hadn't even thought about Jor-El. But, because it ends with that almost like that's some kind of reveal or something, and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm looking at, but I'm sure this is going to lead up to something. Like, it wasn't a problem. I'm just saying, I'm sure this is going to lead to something. That's one of those scenes where it's like, it doesn't want to wrap itself up too nicely because it's an ongoing and it wants to make you come back and read some more, and that's why when you get to something like issue 9, I'm like, I don't want to read about President Superman from Earth 23. I want to see what happens after this.
Yeah. And I have to say, what a cool way to introduce the Fortress of Solitude, too. Like, already have all that stuff in it because it's Brainiac's collection,
Yes, cool idea. I'm not sure that he's the first person to do it that way.
Oh, really? Okay.
He might be, but I'm not entirely sure because, Superman has had... Well, and you remember All-Star. I mean, Superman has, and Morrison borrowed this from a lot of older comics too, where Superman has like all of these artifacts from other worlds and stuff in the fortress. I'm not sure if they've come from Brainiac and other places or not.
Yeah, I knew that he had all the artifacts in the fortress, but since this is young Superman, to introduce the fortress as it is classically known, I think that was a cool idea because the idea back then was like Superman had collected all those artifacts over the course of his existence, right? And then here he's just kind of dumped with them, and I think it's going to be interesting to see like him in there and sort of like discovering all these cultures that he has no idea, you know what I mean? Like even the Kryptonian culture, like because Kandor is still around in the fortress, right? If I remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought.
Are you assuming that, and I haven't read up on this or anything, and I'm sure that there's already been news on this, but are you assuming that Morrison is going to, after he gets done playing with random other Earths, that he's going to keep going from directly after this, or do you think that he'll jump ahead 5 years like Justice League did?
I heard that the plan was originally...
Or did Justice League jump ahead 5 years?
It did.
I thought it did. I stopped reading after that first arc, so...
It did, and...
Okay.
Yeah,
He's like, that's a different thing, and I don't want to talk about it.
Nah, if I get talking about Justice League, I'm gonna get ranty.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. So what do you think he'll do?
The plan originally I heard was for him to do this new Superman thing for 12 issues, but I'm wondering if because Rags Morales is obviously taking a while to draw this, which I don't have a problem with, because I really like his artwork when it's good, but I think what he's going to do is release those 12 issues over the course of however long it takes for Morales to finish these, but we're going to have these fill-in crazy interludes like the Legion and the President Superman from whenever to fill the gaps.
Yeah, maybe what's been throwing me with those is that Morrison is also writing those.
Yeah.
Because usually when you have fill-ins like that, there's a different writer also.
Yeah, I'm thinking of just buying the Morales drawn issues, to be honest.
That's not a terrible idea, because so far, that's where the plot has been.
I mean, like, the Legion interlude doesn't really have any relevance to any Superman stuff that's going on right now, so I feel I didn't even have to buy those.
It may have had relevance to stuff going on in the Legion books, but of course I'm not reading those, so I wouldn't know.
Or even stuff that Morrison's planning down the line, but we have no way of knowing that, you know?
Well, we should probably go and wrap up. I am naturally recommending this, although I'm with you. I don't think people have to actually buy all of this. I think you can totally just grab the issues that are this story and skip the interludes. They're not terrible. It's just I didn't need them.
Right. I mean, like, if I probably would recommend this to people. I mean, it's not my favorite thing, but if you're going to get it, get issues 1 through 4 and then 7 and 8. That's the full story.
Yeah, and that's a complete story arc. I mean, obviously, there's more stuff coming from after this, but the arc does actually finish in 8.
Right.
It's not like with Incredible Hulk where you know the arc kind of finishes, but there's a whole bunch of loose ends. Like, there's not a lot of loose ends with this. It's pretty well wrapped up.
Right, and I don't know, the way we were just describing it, I was just thinking, like, it's going to be a nightmare to collect this.
Yeah, you think?
But that's a whole different thing entirely, I suppose. I'm thinking about people that are going to get this in trade eventually, how it's going to read there.
It's not going to read well. But that's really just my only major complaint about it. The story itself is rock solid.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, other than the transitions or lack thereof, the way it's paced is mainly the problem I have with it, and the interludes and stuff.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for listening to us on the Comic Book Vault. Remember that the Comic Vault is a vast, wondrous wonderland of comics that you can both buy things from and donate things to. You can go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com, click on the Comic Vault, or you can check out eBay. Captain Logan 1989 is the username, and here in about a week I'll have a whole bunch more stuff up for you there. You can also donate stuff to us if you want to, for me to review, or me and Vince, and that is Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Dan, thanks once again for coming in and reviewing some new stuff with me. The next thing I want to do is the arc that just finished up with Daredevil and Punisher and Spider-Man.
Let's do it. I'm excited for that.
We will be doing that next week. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And we'll talk to you next time.